Some of the E3 plans are starting to take shape. We can start plotting the PlayStation 5's release calendar. And I have my reviews of Biomutant and Wonder Boy Asha in Monster World. All that and the latest and everything cool today in The Rundown. Hey, welcome to The Rundown, everybody. My name is Victor Lucas, and it is an honor to have you here to join us to talk about some of the very cool things that are happening in the world of video games and entertainment. This episode is dedicated to Carl West 49, says great top 10 list. Glad there's more than 10 great games so far this year. One I'd like to mention is Ys 9, Monstrum Nox. Johnny Millennium got me to dive into the series with Ys 8, and since then I've been working to play through all of the games. Monstrum, he goes on to talk about how much he is in love with Monstrum Nox, and that's exactly what I wanted. I wanted people to come back with some of the ideas that I may have missed when I put my top 10 of 2021 together so far in the last couple of days. And thank you for watching that video. It was a lot of fun to work on that episode of The Rundown. But it's going to be a lot of fun to work on Carl West 49's episode of The Rundown right now. You may notice that Nintendo made a big announcement today. They have got a date all picked out for the Nintendo Direct that is going to be hovering around the Electronic Entertainment Exposition digital version in 2021. They took a year off last year because of, well, you guys know. And so now we know that they're going to be outlining a bunch of new titles and a bunch of new announcements, all sort of focused around the 2021 timeframe. So they've got a bunch of games to kind of show off, which is great. But of course, there is still this remaining speculation about the Super Switch. And I put a poll up the other day and asking people if a new version of the Nintendo Switch, I'm still hoping it's called the Super Switch, is going to be announced this week. And it was pretty close. It was 50-50 for a long time, but the nays have it. I got a 52% on the no category. And if you look at that Nintendo E3 announcement, it does look like, why would they have this go out and then, you know, circumvent this announcement with another announcement this week? But what is going on with Nintendo is that there is a new wave of rumors and speculation. Screen Rant talks about it here. They've got the idea that the pre-orders are going to open this week on June 4th. And so that would mean that tomorrow, Nintendo would have to surprise us all with the announcement that there is going to be a Super Switch coming up soon. And the whole reason why they would want to do that is so that developers could show off some of the games that they're working on for this new hardware platform, as we've discussed quite a bit. But the reason why these rumors are, I mean, apart from the fact that we all want a new version of the Switch, and it's a very interesting topic to talk about anything that Nintendo's going to be creating hardware-wise, but the reason why this is kind of spinning all over the internet right now is a website or a Twitter handle, Centro Leaks, put out that they have received a screenshot from a big retailer's internal system that shows a new Switch hardware-related listing that will go live on June 4th around midnight. So that would mean that they would have to announce it tomorrow, and then at midnight it would be live and people could get the pre-order for a new Nintendo Switch. Now, this is going all over the place, and Centro Leaks, apparently, I've never talked about them or looked into their background or anything, but what I've seen and what I've read is that they've got a pretty reputable background for leaking stuff. So, who knows, man? It's anybody's guess here, but it does feel weird that Nintendo would announce their E3 presentation and then essentially a day later, come back and say, well, you know what? We have something that we want to talk about today, and have a video and all kinds of stuff ready to show off this brand new Switch. Of course, they don't have to educate us. We all know what the Switch does. We just want a fancier one that's a little bit more powerful. But you know what? E3 is heating up. We talked a little bit about the Xbox and Bethesda presentation that's happening on Sunday, June 13th, and they're going to be talking about their first-party stuff and also what their plans are as partners to publish all of the stuff that Bethesda's got in the pipeline. Very excited to see what's in that press conference. I hope it's Xbox's best one ever, quite frankly. I guess we can't call them press conferences because they're not, I mean, they're video showcases. Ubisoft has got theirs coming up on June 12th, and then there's the Battlefield reveal on June 9th at 7 a.m. Pacific. I don't know if I'm going to be up streaming that one. June 10th, the Summer Game Fest is going to kick off. Don't know what time yet, but there's also the Day of the Devs that's going to be happening. June 11th is the Deep Silver presentation around noon, and June 12th is going to be a busy one. There's a bunch of indie titles with the Wholesome Direct. There's the Ubisoft Forward that day, and then Devolver is also going to have some kind of wacky thing happening there. And of course, June 13th is Xbox and Bethesda, and then June 15th is Nintendo. So there is going to be a ton of information coming down the pipeline, lots of reveals, and that's not everybody. There's a whole bunch of other companies that will likely have their own digital presentations. So it's going to be a little bit scattershot, just like it was last year, and there's going to be streams and info coming in from all over the place. But I'll do my best to wrap it up for you guys, and I will also attempt to stream with you guys on a couple of these for sure, because I'm super excited to see what's going on. But I keep hearing good things, that there's going to be some really meaty announcements, that a lot of the publishers and the developers have had time to kind of deal with this work from home scenario that the whole world has been in. And I think we're going to start to see some really exciting next, level type of video game experiences. So stay tuned for that. Now, a company that will not be at E3, and we don't quite know what their summer plans are yet, is PlayStation, but they did reveal quite a bit today. They had a blog that Herman Holst, who is heading up their studios, the head of PlayStation Studios, basically did a whole Q&A talking about all of the stuff that's going on with Sony, and all of our expectations for what's going to be headed to the PlayStation 5. We're all eager to play games that really show off the horsepower and the potential of this new platform, and they're obviously all aware of it. Talk about an unbelievable circumstance to launch a new machine in. They've had shortages on being able to get these systems into people's hands, but they've also had to deal with all of the developers having to kind of shift their focus and their strategies on completing these titles. So it's been an incredibly challenging time period, and Herman Holtz doesn't shy away from that. And of course, what has come out today is that the God of War Ragnarok has been delayed, and this is Sony Santa Monica basically saying, for the mental health of our team members, and just for the good of the game, because nobody wants a Cyberpunk redo, they need to push it into 2022. We don't know when we're going to get it in 2022, but that's okay. I think, it's important that Ragnarok is as breathtaking and exciting and exhilarating as God of War in 2018 was, because that game kind of changed the business in a lot of ways. It's an incredible game. So this is the teaser that we got last year as the PlayStation 5 was launching, and it said 2021. We all knew that was ambitious. I mean, the level of quality of the first God of War game was so freaking high, it almost seemed impossible that it was on the PlayStation 4. So God of War on PlayStation 5 has got to be exceptional, But what's interesting is God of War Ragnarok is also going to be playable on the PlayStation 4, so it again is going to be one of these hybrid releases out there that has to kind of deal with the lower horsepower of the PlayStation 4. But you know what? I mean, you're looking at gameplay footage. This is the PS4 stuff here. This isn't PS5 footage of God of War 1. It's still, a very powerful and very capable game platform. So we're going to have to wait for God of War, and I think we're going to have to wait for Horizon Forbidden West, which we got a state of play on not too long ago. They took us into the gameplay. It's absolutely gorgeous. I mean, all of the detail and the new animations that we have, the new kind of facial performance work that we're seeing in the characters. Look at this. And they're obviously taking advantage of this kind of more tropical setting to kind of just blast color at us and just take our breath away with this experience. Cannot freaking wait for this game. But I also, just like Cyberpunk, I don't want there to be issues with the game. I want it to be exceptional. I want it to be just like a flawless escape. Now, I suspect that we're going to get that in 2022. They are, in the Q&A, Herman Holtz says that maybe it can hit the target of 2021, but I don't think it is. And it will also be playable on PlayStation 4. And Herman Holtz also talked about the idea of releasing a lot of their titles on PC, and they're definitely continuing to explore that. But PlayStation, and he was emphatic about this, PlayStation is where their first-party published stuff, it will always be available first. So, and they're being very calculated with how long in between releases, like a couple of years on the PlayStation before they think about stuff on PC. But it is interesting. They're shifting their focus a little bit. They're expanding outward. And we also found out that Days Gone developer Sony Bend, who built us an amazing game with Days Gone, and it's really fascinating to me because, obviously I reviewed this, and I interviewed Sam a couple times about it. I interviewed developers about the game a couple times about it. More and more people keep finding this game now that it's just released on PC. People are still finding it on PlayStation platforms, and they're finding my content that I've talked about, with Sam and with devs and reviewing the game. And so every day, without fail, I get some new comments about people's love for this title and how fantastic it was, and they'd like to see Sam in a Days Gone movie or whatever. And, lots and lots of callbacks to this terrific game, which I do believe still is underappreciated. Maybe Sony revives it down the road. Maybe it's something that Sony Bend comes out with a brand new IP, because that's what they're working on, something fresh, something that we haven't seen before, but using a lot of the open world kind of learnings that they have from Days Gone, which sounds exciting as well. But maybe Days Gone is something they go back to a little bit later on, as they continue to assess how much people kind of appreciate the game. But it is a little disappointing, I got to tell you, because I'm a fan of that game, and I'm excited when I do get comments about the stuff that we've put out there talking about the game. It's pretty cool. So if you haven't played Days Gone and you have a PlayStation 5 or even, the PlayStation 4 or a PC now, you should check it out. It's a really, really fun experience. Okay. I wanted to dive into a couple of reviews, games that I've been talking about a little bit over the last little while. I wanted to kind of wrap it up with Biomutant. So this is a game that has been getting, all kinds of different feedback from gamers out there. It is, it's an experience that looks AAA and costs AAA, but it isn't quite AAA. And some of my conversations about Biomutant, I've really kind of looked at it as like akin to the AA games that we used to get on the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360, even scaling back before those generations. So it's ambitious in the amount of systems and the mechanics and the open world design, but it's not quite as fluid and as graceful and as tuned as some of the best AAA experiences out there. That is not to say, though, that this game is not a terrific experience. It's a really, really fun way to escape into a video game. And I found myself, it's very zen, it's very chill. It plays with, these magical auras and deciding whether you want to be a force for good or a force for selfishness. You can join up with tribes and decide kind of which path you want to take. And you go on quests that are kind of the main line, and you get on lots of fetch quests and rescue quests and take down the bandit type quests that are side missions as well. And so there's a tremendous amount of exploration. There's a tremendous amount of customization and sort of becoming this mutant that you have as a character. But it's also incredibly... It's a little vague and amorphous. It's not quite as, rich and defined around your character. Right? And I think that was deliberate on the part of the developers. They really wanted to make the experience your own. And I think that might have been a mistake. I think there's a couple things about Biomutant that I would have shifted focus on. I'm not crazy about the name. I think it's such a generic name that I think it's going to be one that is a forgotten title for a lot of folks. They'll bring it up as a buried treasure type thing, and they'll say, "Hey, remember that Bio thing, with the mutants?" It's just so bland as a brand, and I wish that it was named after the character, and I also wish that maybe perhaps there was a little less customization and a little less kind of, crafting the character to your specific needs, because it's cool as a something that you can kind of present as, you've made your own little being in there, but it's very superficial. There isn't really that much difference in between the character types and the body types. I mean, what's weird about it is you'll see some of the footage in the trailers and everything, and because they made the choice to keep it you choose your own kind of character and your own kind of being, you don't quite know what you're looking at half the time. You don't know who the player character is. And I think that's a bit problematic. And I think it would have been a wiser choice to decide on a character style and a character name and a character brand and build all of this incredible world around the character, because it just looks so kind of pieced together. And that's part of the fiction, because it's a dystopia and you're kind of assembling your look and your outfits and your weapons from the ashes of the civilizations that you're, streaming through and trying to survive in. I get all that, but it just feels, a little unfocused. And so, here's some of the developer playing the experience in the Xbox Series X, and it runs quite well on the Series X. That's what I've been playing it on as well, 4K, 60 frames per second. It's a smooth game, and you certainly do want to explore. And I guess there's value in the idea of really owning the character. I just feel like there was a lot of development resource placed in that direction, and I think that they could have tightened the character and tightened the customization tree, made some of the stuff that you can build a little bit cooler, because half the time it just feels like you're slapping junk together. It just doesn't really feel. They reference in some of their interviews and some of their discussion around Biomutant, they reference the fact that this was influenced by games like Ratchet and Clank, but it's missing that Ratchet and Clank kind of, sass and character kind of development. And obviously I've talked a little bit about the narration kind of working against the game as well. It's like layers of info and exposition and detail that you have to kind of squish into your brain and navigate through in order to figure out, okay, what do I got to do? It also feels like a lot of the branching conversations are meandering and not super focused and not really enriching in terms of the play. And I sound like I'm harping on the game, and I am. I'm quibbling. I'm finding all the things that that kind of bug me about it, but the play of the game is actually really fun. It's really cool. It's great to get into the vehicles. It's great to jump on your robot horse or your mech, or your jet boat kind of thing, and cruise around. There are lots of combat animations and lots of different styles and combos and things that you can pull off. It's an incredibly ambitious game. And, the way that I kind of come down on the experience and, fall on the experience is that it is an indie game. It was made by 20 people. And it is way bigger than what you would expect out of 20 people. It's, not quite No Man's Sky. It's not quite at that level of ambition. It also isn't quite at that level of, sort of dissatisfaction at launch either, because what's happening now, of course, is the Biomutant team is working on patches and improvements and tweaks, and they're taking all the feedback. And so I come away from the game feeling pretty happy with it, especially with the knowledge that it was crafted by people that really just wanted to put something kind of cool into the world out there. I feel like there were some missteps and some choices that could have been redirected to make the game tuned a little bit better and more palatable to a broader group of people. But what we get to play, especially if you open your mind to it, is something pretty damn fun. And I got to tell you, I've been playing some other big titles, but I've been thinking a lot about my experience and my escape into Biomutant. I think it's a really solid adventure, and there's lots and lots of fun inside of this game. It's not perfect, it's clunky, but it's definitely worth checking out. And I think if you have been a fan of all of the trailer stuff, and I think I've talked about it like 3 or 4 times on this channel by now, if you've dug all of the things that you have seen, you owe it to yourself to check out Biomutant. I don't think you are going to be disappointed. In fact, I think you're going to be surprised by how much fun that you have. So I'm going to give Biomutant a 7.5 out of 10. All right, let's talk a little bit about Wonder Boy Asha in Monster World. Now, I've been playing a ton of this game. This is a remake, essentially, of Monster World 4 from back in the Sega Genesis days. And what's crazy is that in-games actually shot me a code so that I could check out the game again on the PlayStation. So I was playing the game on the Nintendo Switch, but then I got to also play a little bit of what Monster World 4 played like on the Sega Genesis, but I played it on the PlayStation 4. And so here's a little bit of footage from Monster World 4, and you play as Asha, and it's the same setup. It's the same kind of, light animations. She wiggles her butt when she opens up chests. There's, a beautiful charm about it. The music has been remastered for the new game, and it's just a really loving recraft of this Sega Genesis kind of ambitious and classic action adventure role-playing platformer, which is still crazy fun to play today. And that was what was mind-blowing, is that I tested it out just to kind of do a little compare and contrast, but I was taken in. And even the save system is kind of the same. You save in pots. You can save anywhere now in the new game, but it is kind of crazy here's the first tower that you have to unlock with this Crystal of Courage, and this is what the new animation is, but it's a lot of the same format. And then you go into the tower, and you've got to kind of navigate through, the maze of the tower, and there's a lot of that in the game. This is, it's a dated design, because it's really lifting on a lot of the core concepts of the classic game and just beautifying everything. You do encounter lots of different characters that you will talk with, and of course lots of little monsters and bosses and things that you're going to fight. But it's all kind of straightforward and simplified. It's mostly a scrolling experience, but there is quite a bit of, going into the background and coming into the foreground and navigating through doors that, either require a key. I just played the old 16-bit game, so it's surreal for me to be looking at this footage again and to see that direct connection. It's crazy. But, you're going to be dealing with lots of little goons that are out to get you and chests that are loaded with little surprises and stuff. It's stuff that you've seen in a million types of games before, but there is this charm, this sort of inviting charm about Asha in Monster World that I didn't want to put the controller down. And so you basically go from towers and dungeons, and there's an ice pyramid, and I don't want to spoil too much of the stuff in there, but you'll fight snakes and giant cyclopses. You'll get these little bat-like creatures that you can jump onto, and they become incredibly effective for you. You can use them to activate switches and to hover from space to space. And it's also how you do a double jump, which I talked a little bit about before, but it's a totally unique way to do a double jump, because you can't just tap the button twice. You actually have to call the creature to you, and it might be a little ways away from you. So getting the timing right is very tricky in the game, but it's also incredibly rewarding when you are able to kind of navigate through that timing challenge and do everything correctly. The boss fights are not incredibly, new or groundbreaking, but they're colorful. And again, I keep using the phrase inviting. That's what the game kind of represents for me. It's like it really kind of like welcomes you in and is easy and enjoyable to play. Now, there are some collision issues and some definitely when you're getting into some combat situations, it does feel a little crude, a little rudimentary, and a little simplistic. And so it's not quite as satisfying as some of the best of the 2D scrolling action-adventure role players that you've been playing out there. There's lots of roguelikes and lots of cool games out there that kind of handle those mechanics a little bit better. But I was still captivated. I still wanted to go and talk to everybody and upgrade my sword and my shield. You get different shields that activate extra powers that will benefit you depending on the environment that you're in. There isn't really a mercantile system where you're crafting things and selling things back or anything like that. Everything is like really just like you would imagine a 16-bit game designer kind of figuring everything out. It's really tuned to be exactly what you need. And so you have to get all the money and then buy the exact stuff that you need, and then you go and fight bigger and badder bosses. And so there are moments in the game where it's like, what the hell am I looking for? There's one little widget that I need, and I need to go and find the right person. I jump into the right area so that I can open the chest so I can progress. There's lots of those little kind of 16-bit style choke points. All of it forgivable though. But what I would say about the game though, I think it's incredibly important to also get the 16-bit Monster World 4. And so the only way that you can do that is part of this package. And I think that this kind of fits, right? Because if you're looking at Wonder Boy Asha in Monster World as a pickup for yourself, you're probably a collector. And so the only way that you can get that is if you buy the physical edition of the game for either the Switch or the PlayStation 4. And it'll likely come to other machines as well. And so you get the code to be able to download the classic game as well, if you don't already have it. I think it was also on the Sega Genesis Mini, so there's a way to play it that way. But I think it's really crucial for you to have that connection to the classic stuff so you can see the effort and the work that has gone into this, because I think if you just look at the core game, it's a little underwhelming because there are better reimaginings, and the Monster World franchise in general has had some cool derivations and some iterations. But there's lots of other different games out there that you can point to that are a little bit more satisfying in the gameplay department. But I really do enjoy this game quite a bit. I think it's a lot of fun on the Switch, but I would definitely recommend you get the physical edition if you can. I'm going to give Wonder Boy Asha in Monster World a 7 out of 10. All right, you guys, that's going to do it for the rundown today. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll be back again tomorrow with another live rundown and EPN play, so please come back for that if you can. And we will see you soon. Thank you to all of our subscribers. Thank you to all of our EPN members. You guys are fantastic. We'll see you tomorrow. And until then, play forever.